Hey, all you rebels out there, welcome. Today is Thursday, August 21st, which is just crazy to think about. And you are watching Rebel Roundup, our daily news and opinion live stream, which, as Sheila mentions, is sometimes even painfully live, with some technical difficulties, some here and there, but it just adds to the fun of it all. And I'm your fairly regular co-host on Thursdays, Tamara Ugolini, and I'm joined today by my friend and colleague in British Columbia, Drea Humphrey. How are you doing, Drea?
I'm doing good. Look, we're burgundy strong today.
I
So
was gonna say we're kind of matching. We're feeling the fall vibes here in
yeah,
Ontario. There's some cooler weather, and I've pulled out the sweaters and the track pants, and I'm
yeah,
sad to see summer go. And I'm sure it's not over yet for sure, but
yeah.
I am enjoying having those like cozy pieces after we had this heat wave where the mainstream media would have you believe that the earth was basically burning and on fire just because we were having like our seasonal summer temperatures.
But we've
So
evolved now. We now know it's hiking and fishing that actually causes the fire. So we're
yeah, of
moving on.
course. Yeah, it's all the climate alarmism. I remember when I was younger, just little side tangent before we get into things. My grandmother, my Oma, we used to love watching the Weather Network for whatever reason. She was like a big garden girly. And so she loved watching the Weather Network. And I remember watching, obviously, the Weather Network with her. And so it's funny to contrast how they used to report on these temperatures and the weather 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, to how they're reporting on it now. Like I can remember very clearly it used to just be like, yeah, we're going through a typical summer heat wave. It wasn't like
Mhm.
glaring red hot
Yeah.
lava on the maps that it is now. It's just wild. But anyway, hey to everybody at home. Thanks for tuning in. We're streaming on a few different platforms and the ones where you can support us and this journalism, and also by extension, kind of have your voice heard and your opinion or your tip or your trick or maybe your comment or suggestion read by us on air and on a broader platform is through YouTube, giving us what's called a super chat, or if you're joining us post live stream, a super thanks. And so through a $5 donation or more, if you feel so compelled, we will read your comment here on air. And then also, if you wanted to hop over to Rumble, the free speech platform, which continues to not censor anyone who, like me, primarily questions the safe and effective marketing mantra of Big Pharma, you can give us what's called a Rumble rant. So, same idea there, $5 or more. And it's a great way to support our journalism, to have your voice heard during the live stream, and just kind of let us know you're out there. Like we really truly love to hear from our viewers and our supporters, and obviously without you none of this would be possible. So I like to say utilize it. But without further ado, Drea, we have tons of news coming out of British
Hmm.
Columbia, your home province.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I guess it probably makes most sense for you to kind of take it away.
Well, never a dull day in British Columbia. Some of the big news is what took place at the Vancouver Provincial Courthouse yesterday. And that was when Dallas Brody, she is the MLA for the Vancouver Quilchena riding, as well as the One BC party leader, says it was time to take matters in her own hands. So she went to the courthouse to file a private prosecution against the lady. If you scroll down a little bit there, her name is Charlotte Cates. In case you're not familiar with her, she's the international coordinator, so a leader for a terrorist entity. Even Canada, it seems almost reluctantly went ahead and did that after much concern, but it's not the only country to deem that organization as a terrorist entity. And Cates was charged, it was 16 months ago, actually, where she was caught on video, leading a crowd into praising the October 7th Hamas terrorist attack. She was denying that other terrorist groups are terrorist groups. This is the same organization that most people will know about from the protests that they had, that were burning Canada's flag, chanting death to Israel, death to the United States, death to Canada. So I always say anti-Israel, but anti-Canada as well. But the point here is that the Vancouver police did recommend charges last year two different hate charges, and the BC Prosecution Service has done nothing. So Dallas Brody claims that she has asked, as have other people I've seen as well. I know there's been pressure from Jewish groups for NDP Nikki Sharma, our Attorney General, to take actions, and she is actually supposed to sign off on this case. And so they always talk about standing against hate with the NDP, but they've done nothing this long, despite all the pushback. So Dallas Brody, who's a former criminal defense lawyer herself, went to the courthouse, and this is a little bit, I think we have a clip of what it looked like.
Yeah, let's definitely show that.
Yeah.
This is the intimidation, right, deployed by these individuals. I mean, it's still, if you had any doubts in your mind before, I mean, here it is in your face just yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Sorry about my filming there. During O Canada, of course. So you had a line of the VPD up there as well, but let's point out they're singing "Oh Canada." Like there's no respect at all. You can't hold your protests out of respect for the country that you live in, whether you were born there or not. They can't do that at all. There's always this contrast that I see between the pro-Israel people, sort of paying tributes, if we will, to the country. But also you see the Marxist overlap between the groups. If you look at the signs, the same people who are so against this pro-terror person being prosecuted in British Columbia are also holding signs saying that, denying Palestinians is also the same as residential school denialism, because it's the same message. They want everybody to believe that Canada is this colonial state and doesn't have the right to exist, as well as we rename names, we rename spaces. So it's this overlap, but nevertheless, Dallas Brody did go inside and file and get it stamped. And in about 60 days, she'll hear when her hearing is, sort of in some ways bypassing Nikki Sharma for now.
Yeah, and Dallas Brody, I mean, I'm sure she was anticipating some of this, but was it just me? Did she look a little bit shocked there?
Well, I think, she's a politician. She claims that in her writing, she's had a lot of people reach out with concerns about this issue. So she was there to be professional and have a professional, conference. They did have some of their own security. But I think once you're in the mix and you see it, you might identify with this as well. Like we didn't sign up to be treated this way when we're out in the field as well. So you have that feeling like this is so weird to have so many people so angry about you when you're standing up for something good, fighting terrorism. And I should say Nikki Sharma, since yesterday, has come out and given a statement here. And I found this quite ironic. She gave the statement to, I believe it was the CBC, and she says that Brody's private prosecution appears to fall under federal jurisdiction as opposed to the jurisdiction of the BC Prosecution Service. I'm sorry, it's been like a year and a half, and you are well aware of this file. And now you're going to sit there when there's attention on it to this degree, and you're going to say, it might not even fall under BC, when the BC Prosecution Services hasn't even said that and isn't saying that when they get asked about the delay. They're like, it's still under review. So it's just, yeah.
Well, and I note too, I liked this post from Dallas Brody, and I'm just going to share it so we can show it on screen before we get to this one super chat that just came in, where CTV was reporting. I'm trying to pull up the headline here.
And can we also show their quick video? We have a full report coming up at deporthamas.com. But what I put up so far didn't have any audio. So after you're done this, let's just show their quick video from their party.
Yeah, well, so their headline here from CTV News, Vancouver, was BC MLA files private prosecution alleging terrorism, gets shouted at by Palestinian protesters. But in there, they said, notably, neither the premier nor the attorney general has the power to lay charges in BC, in British Columbia. That power rests with the BC PS. I assume that's the police service. And Dallas Brody retweeted this. She took screenshots, retweeted this, and then she said, sorry, CTV, Attorney General Nikki Sharma does have the power to direct a prosecution under the Crown Counsel Act. She just doesn't want to prosecute terrorists. I do, and I will. And then part of the screenshot she shares in there is part of that act where it clearly outlines that the AG does have the authority to do this. So it's just funny, like the mainstream media, they'll say, oh, you're misinformation, you need to be fact checked and all of these things. And now at least we have one platform where you can share freely and widely the fact checking of the supposed holy grail of truth and fact, the mainstream media, because they seem to be more and more guilty of the very thing they try to accuse others of doing.
Absolutely. And I think what's happened here is triggering action. I think that's the big win. Whether or not the private prosecution will be successful, I think the biggest challenge of that is the fact that, a judge could look at this and say, well, this matter is, although it is interesting how delayed it is under review of the BC Prosecution Services. So, what do you want me to do? But it does certainly show inaction on behalf of the BC government. Let's just show that clip from the party itself with the audio, which was a little bit about what was said.
For 1BC, we're going to start the press conference now.
My name is Dallas Brody. I'm the leader of 1BC, and I won't have a terrorist attack on my conscience here in BC, here in Canada. And if the NDP, David Eby, Nikki Sharma will not prosecute terrorism, I will. Last year at a Samudoon rally at the Vancouver Art Gallery, speakers wearing masks chanted, "Death to Canada, death to the United States," and a Canadian flag was burned. At this same rally, materials were distributed instructing people on how to organize a mass coordinated terrorist attack. So what has happened since then? Nothing. Zero has happened since then. NDP Attorney General
We can stop
Nikki
there,
Sharma.
Yeah, it actually makes me like my stomach is turning hearing those words and knowing that those are the kinds of things that are proliferating and allowed. And I mean, because through that allowance are ultimately being enabled on our streets. Like it actually makes me feel sick and nauseous to hear that.
And the fact that people are coming up to protest against this in Vancouver, that is so sickening, so disturbing. Everything's flipped backwards here. So,
yeah. And Moonglow gives $2, who says Phoebe Cates, good friend of Eby's, apparently.
Oh.
So that might be a little connection to explore further. Thank you for that.
Well, there's lots of photos of him with different radicals like that. Harsha Walio, the burn them all down, and she seems to be very pro Hamas and everything too. So wouldn't surprise me, that's for sure.
Yeah, at this point in time, I think we had another clip of yours, Drea, that we wanted to show from yesterday. Did we? We might have already showed it, but was this the one maybe that didn't have audio? Oh, I see just some of the signage. Yeah. Okay, we got to that one, and I guess we're 15 minutes through the segment. Do we want to go to a quick ad break and then we'll come back? And or maybe it makes sense on this same kind of vein to lead right into immigration and the crime wave that we continue to see spread across our great dominion. We have Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who's finally kind of catching up. It took him just a few years behind. No big deal, Doug Ford. He's now all of a sudden saying that immigration is happening too fast and it's time to slow down. I mean, I would argue it's a little too late, better late than never, but we're seeing unprecedented levels of newcomers being welcomed with open arms into this country.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have a report on this probably tomorrow. At this point, I'm still digging through some of the data, but there's a lot of people who actually were flagged and otherwise ineligible for citizenship who are being granted. And I don't want to give too much away because I'm still digging into the data, but there's a lot of people in this country who shouldn't be, is what I'll say about this. And it's been accumulating over the last few years, skyrocketed. Like immigration really dipped in 2020, right, with COVID and the border closures, but then absolutely skyrocketed in 2021. And it's like no one thought about preparing our cities, preparing our infrastructure, preparing our systems for this massive, quite literally unprecedented influx of, newcomers. And it's not just immigrants, it's temporary foreign workers, it's international students, it's refugees, it's asylum claimants. And so they're all under this like catch-all of immigration, but they're not all legitimate immigrants. And so we have to start differentiating, I think, between those things. But finally, Premier Ford is saying, you know what, this is a little bit out of control and it's time to slow it down. Listen to this.
But what do you expect when you bring in over 2 million people? And I'm all pro-immigration, but in saying that, we got to slow down now because the foundation of our healthcare system, our education, our infrastructure, everything we do is one thing. That's our economy. And we just need to make sure that we can keep up. We're building the schools, building the hospitals, we're building infrastructure, but we're the fastest growing region in North America. So let's just get caught up, get our housing, and then we can bring more people in.
Yeah, see, that should have happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago, right? That should be done before you open the floodgates. Now it's like, okay, how do we manage all of this? Now like the mess is here. Now we have to try to mitigate, when it should have been, okay, this is our plan. This is where we're headed. How do we ensure that we have everything in place to successfully integrate this staggering number of people coming into the country? I mean, again, I would say it's a little too late, but better late than never when it comes to Premier Doug Ford, because also in his province, Ontario receives the vast majority of immigrants that come into this country. Again, that includes all those other subsects. But not only Ontario, because Ontario is such a vast, massive province, but specifically the Greater Toronto Area, the GTA, and the 401 corridor is where more than half of the immigrants total for the entire country come into this small little corridor of the GTA. And it is staggering. The demographics have changed dramatically in the last few years. And I would argue, even especially like the last year or two, it is shocking. And we're seeing it play out in the streets, on our roads. We have this article from the Globe and Mail published yesterday, and this actually, I think this went viral, or was first reported on, I should say, a couple months ago, or a month or two ago. But this is an Ontario teen. I believe he was 16. Yeah, he was 16. His name is Finley Vander Verken. He died while waiting to be seen at an emergency room in Ontario, waiting in agony. And this mother was advocating, like, she was like, my son is in severe pain and we need to be seen. He was an active 16-year-old who loved playing hockey. He was experiencing intense pain on his right side. He was 6'2", grade 11 student, and he was like crying well on the way to the hospital, and then once there. And he could have been saved had he have received the rapid medical intervention that he needed. But instead of being seen right away, as he should have been, he waited more than 8 hours in an emergency room. And I think he was even in the hallway. His mom said he could be heard making noises in a hallway while his condition deteriorated. And she alerted nurses several times to his decline. And then finally, he was diagnosed with pneumonia, sepsis, hypoxia, and then he suffered a cardiac arrest, a heart attack that afternoon. He was transferred to Toronto's Hospital for Sick Children. at 1:35 a.m. And then at 1:35 a.m. he was taken off of life support. Like, this is absolutely devastating. A healthy, robust, tall, grade 11, had his whole life ahead of him, grade 11 student, 16 years old, died because he couldn't receive medical care at a hospital
in Canada
within 8 hours.
It's so disgusting. I mean, we have stories like that as well. And yes, Ontario's getting the brunt of the immigration. And yes, you're absolutely correct to say that we shouldn't be giving that umbrella term to everything. And even immigrants who go through the correct process and check all of the boxes and come here don't want us doing that because, you know, they're doing everything right and not getting a free pass. But we are seeing that there's also a large amount. It was a disproportionate amount that the federal government says are coming to British Columbia. So it's definitely, some would say, too little, too late for Doug, but at least Doug Ford is saying something, whereas you have David Eby and it's like, okay, yeah, we're just all ready for it. But the other thing about what Ford said there is that, you know, he's starting to sound a little bit like Poilievre that he's been critical of, or some would even say, I don't think he sounds like Trump, but some would say he's sounding like Trump on this. And it's like, I'm sorry, you've been reelected. Where have you been on this issue? You're just waking up to it now. And Ontario is seeing a lot of areas that don't look like Canada anymore. And we're seeing that in Europe happening too, where people like, is this Europe or is this Africa? Like, it's just, there's so much changing happening so fast. And I don't know, you know, this tiptoeing around the tulips when it comes to addressing an actual problem that we elect you to address. It just has to stop, and the people have to just say enough is enough. We have to have some actual action here.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think Ontario is also the hotbed for these fraudulent school mills and the college diploma scams.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something that's happening through the International Students Program, which data shows the vast majority of the people utilizing that program come from India. And there are various videos online and circulating on social media where people are literally going to, you know, summer hotspots, in the Muskokas, for instance, or, you know, even Ottawa, or these other places that are used to be summer vacay spots for Canadians, even Centre Island in Toronto. And they're just filming, walking through the crowd, and they're like, there is literally not a Canadian in sight here. What is going on? So you see that more and more. And also Ontario, that's where I say it's not just like, it's all under the umbrella of immigration, but there's a lot of these subsects that are exploiting these systems and scamming and gaming the system to gain access. And I think Ontario is a hotbed for that, specifically for the temporary foreign worker program, for the international student program, and for the refugee program. And we have here from the Toronto Star, where Mayor Olivia Chow of Toronto is warning that the city of Toronto will be $107 million short this year,
of course,
if the federal government doesn't beef up their budget to Toronto to shelter refugees.
Wow.
Instead of calling for like, hey, let's
slow down.
rein it in, like Ford's doing, he's saying, you know what, maybe it is time to slow down, because I mean, Ontario's faced with a lawsuit right now about not being able to provide shelter to refugees. And so maybe it's Toronto, actually. I might be wrong. I think it's the city of Toronto that is being hit with this lawsuit for not being able to shelter refugees. And yet they're just still opening the floodgates. It's like, why are you can't just keep asking for more and more money when you quite literally do not have the infrastructure to handle this capacity. There's no way to build it within a month or like 7 months ago. So you need to stop the influx, because otherwise it's not fair to Torontonians, and it's not fair to the immigrants who come here the proper way, who didn't queue jump, who didn't scam or game the system. And what a slap in the face to all of them who jumped through the hoops.
Or the ones that are still waiting. Like, you know, they've been doing everything right and they're still waiting to come here. And And we're losing track of them. There was that report that came out not too long that showed we don't even know where some of them are. So that's a safety risk for us, a big safety risk, to the point that India has branded the prime minister, and that country has branded us a safe haven for terrorists, because they're saying we're actually letting people in that are criminals over there, and we're letting them in here. And it's just like, hey, come on, it's a free for all. So, you know, unfortunately, this is already catching up with us. And yeah, people like Mayor Olivia Chow are not helping with that.
Yeah, and she says here, the first few sentences of this report say, Mayor Olivia Chow says Prime Minister Mark Carney's government is set to walk away from its duty to house refugee claimants, warning that a new federal funding formula would leave Toronto more than $100 million short on shelter costs for asylum seekers this year. The third paragraph here, she says, as you know, providing safe shelter for refugee claimants is a federal responsibility, and the city and province cannot shelter the cost. Yeah, absolutely. But the feds are cutting back on, well, they've pledged to. The data paints a different picture, but everyone is starting to say, you know what, this is really bad, and we need to start reining it in ASAP. And I think they're just running around like chickens with their heads cut off, because we've reached this crucial breaking point, and no one's really sure what to do. How do we get out of this mess and untangle it? I mean, you have to you have to put stipulations and checks and balances back in place immediately, and we have to start deporting the people that should not be here, who are illegally here, and we have to stop approving those who are flagged as being ineligible to come in the first place. This is absolutely crazy. And it's too bad, because I think we should have really started talking about this a few years ago. Like we're everyone is too little too late on this file. But the conversations are happening now. It's just that action needs to start taking place.
Even the boomers, the same boomers that, you know, predominantly voted for Mark Carney, now they're talking about it too. There was that recent study that came out. Actually, David and I talked about it last week, but they're saying, yeah, it's a little bit out of control now too. So it's like, yeah, well, you think, where were you during the election with that one?
As crime is out of control in this country, I always wonder how much of that could be maybe not stopped completely, but at least lessened, if the people who actually upheld our laws, our rules, our regulations weren't allowed to come into this country and then given a free pass, given all these benefits, housing, free schooling, free classes. Like a report that Alexa just put up on X, maybe we can just play the first minute or two of it. But this guy comes from Chad. He came here illegally.
Right.
And he's receiving nearly $1,000 a month just to support him, to feed and clothe and house him. And then he's also getting free classes out of the deal. So this is like a gravy train for him. Let's have a listen.
Du Tchad?
Oui, je suis devenu du Tchad. Mes collègues, ils ont tué même les Tchadiens.
Ça fait combien de temps que vous êtes au Canada?
Je suis venu au
Canada
maintenant, là. Ça fait 11 mois.
Yeah.
9 mois, les 6, je suis venu au
my
Canada.
colleagues killed Canadians.
Arrivé
Oh, that's totally normal.
No big deal.
La rue de Nicaragua. C'est comme ça que je suis venu au Canada.
Vous êtes rentré par en bas des États-Unis, vous êtes monté?
Oui, c'est comme ça. Je suis rentré comme ça. Je vais faire le cours francisation. J'ai trouvé le français un peu. Je vais parler. Je vais lire un peu. Je vais écrire un peu. Tout.
Est-ce que vous travaillez ou vous faites juste aller au cours?
Je vais aller au cours seulement. Je n'ai pas de travail. Il m'a donné, nous, avec les migrations, il a donné nous confiance, tout. Parce que même votre pays, qui t'a payé de l'argent? Et social, il va me payer, et social, on va dormir normal, on va manger normal, on va partir à l'école normale. Je vais toujours féliciter le Canada.
Qu'est-ce qui vous paye jusqu'à maintenant, le gouvernement? Est-ce qu'il vous paye votre appartement? Est-ce qu'il vous aide à payer?
Oui, le gouvernement, il m'a aidé beaucoup. Par mois, il va me payer 800, 900 $.
Pour le logement ou
pour tout est compris, 900 $ seulement.
À la frontière?
Only 900.
À la frontière.
Mais est-ce que quelqu'un vous a aidé à traverser la frontière?
Mais à grâce de Dieu, j'ai rentré. À grâce de Dieu, il m'a aidé. Avec mon véhicule, c'est comme ça, je vais rentrer.
Ben, je veux dire, est-ce que vous êtes
God says to
rentré
work.
sur les terres? Est-ce que vous êtes rentré illégalement?
Ah, là, c'est pas également. Je suis rentré derrière.
Derrière?
Illegally.
Oui, derrière.
Qu'est-ce que vous voulez dire par derrière?
Par derrière, le Dieu, il m'a
Yeah,
aidé.
God
Ça.
helped him enter
Il a
illegally.
demandé refuge?
Yeah.
Oui, c'est ça que on a
And there's
rentré,
just
mais
so much
après-
confidence that like there's no coincidence, like nothing's going to happen. This is Canada. I can just
Yeah.
like have this interview, talk about how my colleagues murder Canadians and I got here illegally and they're just paying me to do, X, Y, Z. I'm not opposed, of course, to us offering classes to people who are immigrants here legally, but they should also be looking for work. He's like, no, this is all I do. I just go to school, and I'm, as someone who has, a child in post-secondary, it's very difficult for kids to be able to go to school, be able to afford to live on their own in today's economy. They're not getting any help. So.
Exactly. The average everyday Canadian doesn't get this kind of handout. And so this doesn't make sense to me why we're letting people who came in here right off the bat, his journey into Canada was illegal, was unlawful, did not follow the rules. And now all of a sudden we expect that our crime rates are going to improve when we let people who don't follow the rules into our country right off the bat. I mean, if you want to be a law-abiding contributing citizen to this country, then come the right way.
Yeah. And what is the right way? Like, we need a Canadian way. That's all this breakdown on, the pride in Canada is really the biggest culprit, because Canadians don't even appreciate the country that they had, everything that we had. And so we don't fight for it in any way, shape, or form. We just shut up. And so what exactly, we can't even, to a certain extent, show new people the Canadian way anymore, because half of us think it's shameful.
Yeah, exactly. Nana Awake gives $5, says Canadians' tax dollars shouldn't be subsidizing this invasion. We should stop funding our society's destruction and invest in Canadians. We have a chance. Close the borders until this mess is cleaned up. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there should be some stipulations, if your family's waiting, or you're legitimately married and your spouse is waiting, or those sorts of things. People who are kind of already in that queue, I don't think the border should be closed to them to stagnate that process that they've already initiated legally. But otherwise, yeah. And again, let's find the roughly 500,000, 500,000 people in this country who are due for deportation, that the Border Services Agency is just like, we don't know where they are. Hopefully one day we'll come across them, but we don't know where they are. So what are we going to do here?
Something else Poilievre said recently when he was saying, what they would do kind of thing, that I thought was a good idea, is whatever applications sort of are in process, like whoever is here, that it should be the people who just got here need to go to the top, I guess, of the list of, checking out to see if they should be here. Because if that happens, if we flip that, then people will know, okay, I'm not going to get away with years of living in Canada before they actually get to my file. Instead, they would go, maybe within 3 months, 6 months, they're going to figure out that something's wrong here. So I thought that was something that should be happening too for whoever is here now.
Yeah, and we have this, it's a 7-minute clip, so we won't play the whole thing, but we have a clip here from yesterday of Pierre Poilievre, who's calling it out, saying crime's up, inflation's up, deficit's up, and guess what? Elbows are down. Have a listen, maybe the first minute or two of this one.
Here we are today at a location that was the victim of one of those very crimes. Let me read from Red FM. Surrey Police Service officers are investigating a shooting incident at the Royal King Banquet Hall located in the Pale Business Centre. According to police, damage to the exterior of the banquet hall was discovered by staff at 1 a.m. on July 21st, 2025, where it was confirmed that the damage was consistent with gunfire. So this is just one of the many examples of the 330% increase in extortion-related crimes since Liberals lowered the penalty for extortion. They removed mandatory prison sentences for extortion with a gun. No wonder crime is raging out of control.
Like, why?
Crime,
why would we do that?
costs, immigration, housing prices are all out of control after 10 years of Liberals, and Mark Carney promised to be different. Instead, everything is worse. The deficit is worse under Carney than it was under Trudeau. The crime is rising under Mark Carney. Our economy is falling, with $60 billion of net investment fleeing our country since he became Prime Minister. Not a single new pipeline, so not a single new proposal for an LNG plant or nuclear plant or port expansion has been made since Mark Carney took office, promising that he was going to reverse weak Liberal economic policies. In fact, he has given a gift to President Trump as $60 billion of Canadian investment has fled the country in less than the half a year since Mr. Carney took office. And speaking of trade, he promised he could handle Trump. He said that he could negotiate a winning deal. So far, American tariffs have doubled on Canada, and we're now losing a trade war with China, which is hammering our farmers and fish harvesters. As Mark Carney fails abroad, Canadians pay the price here at home. And nowhere is this more true than in the area of crime and chaos. Mark Carney has not only failed to change a single Liberal law, he sent his MPs home for the summer with crime up, inflation up, the deficit up, and elbows down, and not a one action taken to reverse the Liberal crime chaos that we came to expect under his predecessor. And he put in charge of crime his two most incompetent ministers. First, he's got Sean Fraser as the Justice Minister. This is the immigration minister who caused the immigration crisis, and the housing minister who caused the housing crisis. And now because of those failures, he's in charge of law and order. And then he's got a public safety minister who doesn't even know what a gun license is. So how can he fight gun crime? The incompetence that you have to have as a prime minister to name such terrible ministers would be laughable if it weren't so terrifying, because the people behind me today are paying the price for this insanity. And that is why
anyway,
conservatives...
he goes on, and I mean, just dropping truth bombs every which way. Absolutely. I think he didn't mention our public safety minister, Gary Andesangare. I always struggle with his long-winded name, but has to recuse himself from any dealings with the terrorist entity, the Tamil Tigers. And this is the guy responsible for our federal national public safety portfolio. It's absolute madness. And so anyway, Poilievre goes on, we have a campaign dedicated there if you want to learn more about who Gary really is, and calling for his firing to be, not to be on the public safety file anymore, as public safety becomes increasingly compromised, and I would say just non-existent in this country. So head on over to firegary.com. Another absolutely crazy story on the crime file that we have launched a campaign on is the castlelawnow.com website. And so the story, for anyone who hasn't heard about it already, Lindsay, Ontario, was sleeping. He was asleep in the wee hours of the night in his home in Lindsay, when an intruder broke into his home, and now he is being charged criminally. He faces jail time, and I think he actually was held for a time in jail. But because he initiated, obviously, self-defense when he awoke out of a dead sleep to an intruder in his home, he's now being charged criminally and faces jail time for defending himself and his castle. So we've launched a campaign at Castle Law Now, and you can check out the reports that I think the campaign launch that Ezra did. And then, of course, we're going to have reports helping this guy defend himself from these crazy charges he's facing as a result of his self-defense. So the legal fees and the media coverage, because already we see the state broadcaster, the CBC, coming to the defense of, I don't know, I guess the criminal The police,
Of course.
who have charged this
What other
guy.
position would they take?
Yeah, I mean, unsurprising, right? But the the headline just, oh my gosh, it got me. It says, yes, self-defense is allowed in Canada. Misinformation, right? There it is, of course.
Oh,
It's
gosh.
misinformation abounds as man charged in assault of intruder. And they found a lawyer, of course, to talk on this.
Why?
A criminal lawyer not at all involved in this case and has likely no details, around it. But it's misinformation if you think that you should be allowed to defend yourself and not face the consequences of that defense, says our state broadcaster, because they're calling it within reason.
Mhm.
So basically, I think it was the Lindsay police or the Kawartha Lakes police who filed these charges against this 44-year-old man. His name's Jeremy. After the altercation, and this is from the CBC, left the alleged intruder. I don't think it's alleged that he was intruding, but anyway, left the alleged intruder with life-threatening injuries Monday morning in a small town northeast of Toronto. And police have provided a few details, so the CBC capitalized and brought in a lawyer to share this alleged misinformation with them. The intruder is also facing charges, but they're, from what I gather, in critical condition. They were airlifted to hospital following the incident. And I guess basically the Kawartha Lakes police came out with a press release and said that the force has to be reasonable. Yeah. And so they're alluding to the fact that this homeowner used, I guess, unreasonable force when he was defending himself. And
that's the difference between us and the United States right there. And that's the problem.
Yeah. And well, for me, I'm thinking, if I wake up in the middle of the night and somebody is in my home, I'm not thinking about what is reasonable or not. I'm just out to defend myself and ensure that my home is protected. I don't know if this guy has any kids, but I'm certainly concerned about the safety and well-being of my children if that were to, God forbid, occur. In the heat of that moment, how in the heck are you supposed to decide what is and isn't reasonable? That is just insane. You're literally in fight or flight, I would say, at that point. And obviously, this gentleman was in fight.
It's like, can you fill out this form, please, and let me know? Do you have any weapons? Have you taken martial arts? Like, what the heck? It's 3 a.m. and an intruder is in your home. It should be safe and protected to assume that you need to defend your life at all costs. That should be a no-brainer. It's not in Canada. And I think there is way more of a deterrent in the United States where people know that, hey, if I break into this house, I might be faced with a force that is bigger than I was willing to come in here with. So we don't have that at all here. We have this fear that if you protect yourself, and it's not like it's a fist fight in a bar here where you get mad at each other and you start punching and then someone takes it out of control and pulls out a knife or whatever here. This, again, dead asleep, wake up 3 a.m. to an intruder in your home in the dark.
And you have seen the absolutely weak response of police in recent years. I mean, Toronto police told residents and advised them to leave their key fobs at the front door so that an intruder, when they inevitably break into your house to steal your vehicle, that you don't have to suffer through an altercation because you'll just place it like neatly with a little bow at your front door in a nice little packaged box. Here, please take my key fob and don't hurt me. Like, this is the response of our police. This is absolutely insane. It's not like this guy could say, oh my gosh, there's an intruder in my home, I need to call the police, and they'll be here in like 2 hours. Mm-hmm. He did, I think, what any reasonable person would do. And in that moment, you're not thinking about, did I protect myself a little too much there? This is just insane. And we can't rely on the police. And this is what happens when you have weak policing, weak laws, and your criminal justice system is a complete failure. And I'm not saying that this is vigilantism that this guy engaged in. This was quite clearly, in my view, self-defense. But you will start to see more and more vigilantism because the police are no longer serving and protecting. And even if they are, our judicial system and our federal justice system, and even to some degree, the provincial justice system, I mean, all these levels are repeatedly failing to uphold the safety and security of Canadians and Ontarians and Torontonians, et cetera, et cetera. It trickles down. So what are people left to do exactly?
Yeah, I believe it was the Vancouver police. I'm trying to find it, so don't quote me on that. But one municipal police in British Columbia that were expressing frustration with their charges not being upheld. It's like, imagine being an officer, you find the bad guy, this is what you signed up to do, you track them down, you arrest them, you're keeping the public safe, and you hand it over to the province or to the feds, nothing happens.
Yeah, it's a wild time to be alive. We have a quick super chat from Murray Wright, who just gives us $20. Thank you very much for your support. And I'll do a quick ad read here. We'll go to another ad break. Give us a moment, and then we'll come back to hit the last few of our topics. So this comes from the Canada Strong and Free Network. They're hosting an event, and it is your last chance to save on tickets to one of the most important conservative events of the year. The Canada Strong and Free Networking Conference is coming to Calgary September 5th and 6th. It's around the corner. September is sneaking up so fast. This year's theme is the West's place in Canada, and you'll be able to hear from some of the biggest voices in Canadian politics and media, like Premier Danielle Smith, Preston Manning, Conrad Black, and Tristan Hopper. Reserve your tickets today at canadastrongandfree.network. So there you have it. Head on over, get your tickets. Like, seriously, we will go to sleep and blink, and September will be here. Time just flies.
Always a good time.
Yeah. All right, let's go to a quick ad break, and then we'll come back for more.
Gun bans make great distractions.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same rhetoric.
We will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of
hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted, while criminals run wild under Liberal policy. But we are fighting back. Join us, Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again. And that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA hats to introduce, well, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again.
All right. And before we move on any further, I want to remind our viewers that Rebel News is having its birthday party. And that also is going to sneak up so fast on us. So you can check it out, check out the plan, the events. There's 2 back-to-back events happening. The first one will be in Calgary on September 18th. And then our Toronto birthday bash will be on October 16th. Yeah. So you can get your tickets now at happybirthdayrebel.com. And I believe there's still early bird tickets for anybody who's interested. We turned 10 back, I believe it was in February. But, you know, the news cycle is just relentless and so fast moving that we just didn't have time to celebrate back then. So we hope you'll join us. Just a casual few months later.
And I like to think it's all of our birthdays, like all of our Rebel supporters. Everybody's been watching us. I love when I went on the cruise, I'm meeting people who are like, I was with Rebel for day one and stuff.
Yeah.
And so some of you have been a Rebel before I was. So I love that. It's all of our birthdays. So.
Exactly. We've all grown together and many of you even before Drea in my time.
Yeah.
So the Calgary event in particular will have a special guest. So Tamara Leach will be performing, and she has an amazing voice. And so she'll be serenading the crowd with her musical talents. So head on over to Happy Birthday Rebel. Wait, am I saying the URL right? I hope so. Happybirthdayrebel.com. Sometimes I get confused with all the different URLs that we have. And celebrate our birthday bash with us September 18th in Calgary and then October 16th in Toronto.
That picture of Ezra is just so goofy.
It gets me every time. All the pictures. I love like how cheesy
I'm not even smiling in mine. Why do I look so unhappy? What the heck? Like I'm not even happy about the birthday.
I just love this basic superimposed birthday hat on all of us.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's so cheesy that it's just great. It's my favorite. We have this like rotating, when it's someone's birthday, there's this rotating birthday postcard that we share amongst each other. And it's just like one superimposed person after, there's like layer upon layer of whose birthdays it was previously, just placed on top. It's so cheesy, but it's so funny. It gets me every time. My weird dry sense of humor. All right. So I don't know, Drea, do you want to go through any of these extra topics, or should we just get right into our daily dose of cringe?
I want to quickly talk about what the heck is going on at the Sutina Nation.
Okay.
And that's in Alberta, just outside of Calgary. So they've had two major stories in the last just over a week. The most recent is this theme that we're seeing. I think we have a Western Standard article we can pull up. If not, I'll put it in the chat right now. But basically, it's along the line of, the public getting kicked out of spaces. Now, in this case, it is the First Nation, their land, but it was the media being kicked out when the media was trying to investigate a alleged human traffic situation that is going on there. Now, I don't know all of the details about that, but this raises some major things. The article that I did just put in here, I'm just going to read a couple of things from it. It says the Sutina Nation has issued a ban on members of the media accessing its lands over concerns that coverage of a human trafficking case could cause distress among band members. I'm sorry, isn't it more distressing that there is a human trafficking case, and shouldn't the press, the need to figure out what's happening, be the focus there? And it says the nation's police service, so this is the band's police, asked that their officers, the Nation Police Services, so sorry, I got that wrong. So the Nation Police Services asked First Nations officers to prevent reporters from entering their territory. So after the band said, oh no, this is too distressing for journalists to come investigate what the heck is going on in this area for human trafficking. So then the nation goes, oh, okay, so please get your people, your officers, to tell them not to. This is insane. And it's very reminiscent of what I saw happen when I was investigating the Kamloops ban. The RCMP, it was when they were asking questions about the false claim, but the immediate claim at the time that there had been 215 children's remains found. When the police were asking questions, they were told that it was too heavy-handed and it was making the ground penetrating radar specialists uncomfortable. So this is just sick. That's story number one.
But yeah, and I mean, Indigenous people have been trying to bring light to the disproportionate number of missing and murdered women, right? Where there was the Red Dress Project or the Red Dress Day trying to, bring public awareness about this. So this to me directly ties in with human trafficking. And yet they're blocking media from reporting on something that could serve to amplify that very messaging that they've been trying to get across for years. So it's like, this stuff doesn't seem very well thought out to me.
Or maybe it is, because blocking the media is controlling the narrative of what comes out. Now, whatever the involvement is, or apparent involvement of that area, they get to control what message comes out. So maybe it is well thought out. The other story, which is kind of adjacent, but out of the same band, is that just over a week ago, its chief, Roy Albert Whitney, was charged with 2 historical sexual assaults, allegedly on 2 men who are both members of the band but don't know each other. So there's a lot going on there, and they don't want journalists poking around, which means we should be poking around.
Right, exactly.
Rebels should be poking around.
There's a way to sneak in somehow. Just
We gotta
claim.
you know what? If you are a member, because this is the other thing. When banned governments behave this way, it pisses off their members. And I know this from following the Kamloops and Unmarked Grave beats. So if you know, your identity can be totally concealed. If you have any tips for us, you can reach out to me at drea@rebelnews.com, because I know a lot of them are like, this is ridiculous. This is making us look bad. And, you know, it's breaching trust on the situation. Or like you said, Tamara, maybe they want this. They want to get to the bottom of who's going missing, maybe of their own people. I mean, I'm speculating a lot because I don't know all the details about what's being investigated yet.
Yeah, exactly. More to come. And I wonder if you could just head on over there and claim refugee status and be welcomed in, given some benefits, maybe some free place to stay, room and board.
Oh yeah, no way.
That's just the rest of Canada. Okay, let's hit our daily dose of cringe quickly here. Comes from Bonnie Critchley, who's the Media Party candidate that ran against Pierre Poilievre in the recent by-election in the Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot. And she was just crushed. I think she got like 10%. I need to double check that. I think she got something like 10% of the vote. But here's her message post-election, where she was really far down in the percentage of votes cast in her favor.
Well, wasn't that interesting? Not quite what I expected, but that's all right. I still took 10% of the vote.
Yeah.
And for an independent, out of nowhere, with 3 months to work and a team of 5, that is unheard of.
That is a lot.
That tells me people are hearing my
Right about
message, and they want to see integrity and truthfulness and actual caring and compassion come back to politics. I and many others want our Conservative Party back from these far-right individuals who think integrity and truth and compassion are just weakness. That's not true. Look
That
what
makes
I
no
accomplished in
sense.
3 months without anybody behind me. I appreciate very much all of the folks in Battle River Crowfoot who actually got out to vote yesterday. A little over half did, and it's fantastic. Thank you very much to the folks across the country who donated their tens and twenties.
Yeah, it gets me.
To help me fight the big monster machine. I appreciate it so very much. And so do those of my neighbors who are paying attention to what's going on and not just voting how they have because they always have.
Is this
I
scripted?
ran a
Because
campaign
it's bad.
where I didn't lie, I didn't break the rules.
I think there's somebody behind
I
her
didn't cheat.
going like this.
I didn't
with the-
have mocked
and
up
she's
Elections
waiting because they're
Canada
messing up
signs
in some areas.
right by the polling stations, facing the polling stations with my name on them. I didn't destroy or compromise my opponent's signs. I didn't have people spreading gross misinformation. I simply told the truth.
All right.
It is funny to me
Well-
that those who most mistrust the system.
She got 10% of the votes for telling the truth. And what did she say about integrity being a lie?
She said that the far right or whatever doesn't believe in integrity, or we believe that integrity and kindness or something like that is weakness.
Oh, is weakness. Yeah. Okay.
I will say 10% is actually a lot. For that woman, 10% is a lot for an independent.
Yeah, it must be that she must have used music in her other campaign
All
videos.
those trigger
because-
words. But
Yeah,
I think it was a bit delusional to think you were actually going to beat Poilievre, you know.
Yeah, well, and as Ezra pointed out in his tweet of, or his post of this, and I think she gets into this later on in the video, and I'm sorry, but without the music, I just could no longer listen to it. Ezra says she actually truly thinks the by-election was stolen from her.
Oh gosh.
She's been radicalized by the CBC. What a kook.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, 10%, I like, maybe if it was more neck and neck, you could try to claim in some valid way that the election was stolen, but 10% versus what I'm not even sure what Poilievre got, like 87 or something.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah, like substantially more than that. It was not even a close race. Oh, here it is.
80%.
Yeah.
Which was to be expected. Like,
right. It's such a strong, big C conservative held riding. And so, yeah, I think that she can just kind of fall back into the abyss and maybe rear up again during the next election. Who knows? But yeah, it's really odd. And the weird like combat warrior music in the background. Whose decision was that? Whose decision? All right. Well, I think we hit all of the topics. I think we got through the super chats. Thanks to everybody who sent in. Thanks, Drea, for hopping in for Sheila today and joining me. It's always a good time. And of course, thanks to everybody behind the scenes that make sure the stream runs smoothly and all the links are available to you and to us, Drea and myself, so we can join them and have everything laid out and ready to go. We're your front-facing camera talent, but there's a whole team behind us to make sure this stream runs smoothly. So thanks to all of them. Thanks to our viewers. And until tomorrow, I think, Drea, you'll be back on the stream for the panel. And until then, stay sane and question everything.
You know, where are Mark Carney's elbows these days? He seems to have misplaced them. You know, he's made concession after concession to President Trump and got nothing in return. It would be one thing if he backed down on counter tariffs and the digital services tax and so on and got wins. But instead, the tariffs are twice as high today on Canada than they were when Mark Carney took office. He's cast aside. He's not even invited to big international meetings. And Beijing's dictatorship now smells weakness. And they're targeting us with new tariffs on our farmers and fish harvesters. Mark Carney is losing abroad, and Canadians are paying the price at home. So I think everyone's waiting for this, for Mr. Carney to live up to his promises. If I were Prime Minister today, we would be building from a position of strength. We would have passed the Canadian Sovereignty Act to repeal all the anti-energy laws, legalizing rapid pipeline construction, mines, LNG plants, nuclear facilities, expanding and opening up our ports so that we could send our goods overseas and be less reliant on the Americans. And we would negotiate from that position of strength to get a fair deal that, yes, ensures Canada does its job of protecting North America with a stronger military and more secure borders, but also gives us free trade with our American friends. That is the deal. That would be the adventure that we would be on now, and it is what we are going to put forward when Canadians eventually vote in the next election.